virtual choking.
No, I have a gun.
It's rehearsal.
Good afternoon, everyone. Lieutenant Colonel Allen West, gubernatorial candidate for the Republican nomination here in the state of Texas. And I also want to wish everyone out there a very happy New Year. And sadly, one of the things that we have to discuss going into this new year is what is happening with our Texas National Guard forces as part of Operation Lone Star. When I was a young officer, a second lieutenant in the United States Army, before heading out to my first duty assignment at Fort Sill, Oklahoma, my dad gave me a simple charge. He said, Lieutenant West, the most important thing that you have to do as an officer, as a leader, is to take care of your soldiers, take care of your troops. And that was a guiding philosophy for me for the 22 years that I served in uniform, being at a training exercise, being at a garrison exercise, being at combat deployment. You always want to make sure that it was my men, my mission, and lastly, myself. And when I look at what has happened with Operation Lone Star, I think that that has gotten completely out of balance. You know, one of the things that we have to do in the military is that we go through what is called a military decision-making process. We make sure that we analyze every mission. We come up with courses of action. And then we finalize that into an operations order so that we can make sure that every single person that is deployed, they know their task and they know their purpose. They know the mission. They know the commander's intent. They know the incredible methods that are going to be necessary to make sure that we meet the appropriate end state. But sadly, that has not been part of what is going on in Operation Lone Star, where it seems that the commander's intent is just based upon someone coming out and giving a political press conference or maybe even putting out a tweet. And so one of the things that we have to get back to is the basics of military operations. That means soldiers understanding their task and purpose. Because when they don't understand their task and purpose, let me tell you what is happening. You have officer resignations that are increasing in our Texas military forces. You have soldiers that are getting out of our Texas National Guard. But one of the most horrific things that was reported in the Army Times, and sadly, we don't have media here in the state of Texas that's reporting this, but since November, we have had 4 confirmed suicides, 1 suicide attempt, and another suicide under investigation. And why is this happening? Because we rushed into a failure. We decided that it was all about a political optic. It was about a political opportunity. It was not really about understanding what the mission and the task and purpose should have been. And so therefore, we have put our National Guard forces down there along the border. They don't understand why they're there. They don't understand why some of them were giving 72 hours or even less to be part of a 1-year state active duty assignment. I want you to think about that. When I was deployed to Afghanistan or Iraq or Desert Shield, Desert Storm, no one told us in 72 hours that you got to head up and go. Now, yes, when you're a part of a ready deployment force, you're ready to go, sometimes in the airborne, 18 hours, 36 hours. But guess what? All the necessary things have been done and been prepared for so that you can deploy. And all of the supplies and logistics and things as far as taking care of the families are handled. But we have put an undue hardship on the men and women here in the Texas military forces because of a political optic. One of the things that we have to look at is this ad hoc volunteer system. In the military, we have units, and units are supposed to deploy as a cohesive force, not just picking onesie and twosie soldiers and throw them down into an area, because then they don't have the right command structure. And that's another reason why we have these hardships. We got to look at our combat readiness. There are a lot of our men and women down there on that border. They don't have the right type of equipment. They're missing individual first aid kits. They're missing and not having the right body armor. Some of them are even down there with their own personal weapon. There's a shortage and a lack of ammunition. There's even instances where our men and women in uniform, since we don't have porta potties that are out there along these important areas, they're actually just publicly going out and using the restroom. That is unconscionable to me. That's not how we treat soldiers here in the state of Texas. One of the other things that we have to be concerned about is the rules of engagement. See, we are seeing the cartels fire across the border, across the Rio Grande, into the state of Texas. That's an act of war, firing across an international boundary. But yet our men and women don't have the right rules of engagement. I don't even know if they have the right use of force cards. When we deployed to Desert Shield, Desert Storm, Iraq, Afghanistan, we had those rules of engagement cards. We had the use of force cards that defined what we could do. But instead, our men and women being told that they just don't return fire. That's not how you take care of troops in a combat zone. And one of the things that we have to look at is, why is it that they don't have the right supplies? Why is it that they are being deployed without the right type of equipment? One of the things that's a big concern to me is, out of the 54 different state and territorial National Guards, Texas ranks to the last as far as preparedness of equipment and readiness. Why aren't we seeing a level 1 preparedness and readiness for our forces that we're sending down on this border? Now, when you talk about taking care of troops, there's no one better that understands that than a command sergeant major. And today I am joined by the former senior enlisted officer, non-commissioned officer of the Texas National Guard, Army National Guard, and that's Command Sergeant Major retired Jason Featherston. He spent 25 years active Guard and Reserve. His background is as an armor and infantry soldier, and I think that he can share some further insights about what we see happening with our troops. Sergeant Major.
Thank you, Colonel West. You know, the National Guard was designed to support the local communities by people in the local communities. Your guardsmen that Colonel West has referred to are the husbands, the wives in your community, the sons, the daughters, your brothers, your sisters, cousins, aunts, uncles, your family. And the way the family is being treated right now is just irreprehensible and actually wrong. You know, the National Guard was designed to mobilize in a short notice for a short period of time in times of natural disasters, or maybe a wildfire in West Texas, a hurricane coming to the Gulf, or any other issues that might be a local emergency. You know, one thing that guardsmen need are benefits. And the Texas Army National Guard, or the Texas Guard, the commander, Major General Tracy Norris, signed a budget request last cycle to cut guardsmen's tuition assistance and submitted that to Governor Abbott and to the Texas legislature. This documents can be found online publicly by anyone. Now, when you cut benefits for tuition assistance by 54%, that's wrong. That's not taking care of any soldier. And soldiers depend on that tuition assistance for an education, to get a better job, to further support their family. You know, soldiers are experiencing habitual pay problems. You know, Operation Long Star has been going on for 9 months. I mean, we're about to round a year here very soon, and soldiers are still getting paper checks because direct deposits aren't being submitted or processed at the Texas National Guard. Well, this causes a very unique hardship for guardsmen, because a check is printed in Austin, put in an envelope. These envelopes are driven to the border where soldiers receive them if they went to the right location. Many reports say that envelopes are going to wrong locations, then have to be driven from places from Del Rio to RGV, or RGV to El Paso. And so when a soldier finally gets a paper check, then he has to go open up a local bank account, because not all banks will allow mobile deposits for the amounts that these checks are. Or another hardship is, after the soldier deposits his check, he's got to wait till the check clears so he can send money home back to his wife or to her husband or to family members to pay their bills. And this is an undue hardship because soldiers have families at home that depend on them providing for them. No other issues, conditions that soldiers are living in. Soldiers are coming in contact with immigrants coming from the southern border who have not been vaccinated. Not all Texas Army National Guardsmen, or not all Guardsmen, are vaccinated. Governor Abbott has said that he will not push for Guardsmen to get vaccinated. And so these Guardsmen are going back to, some of them are going back to living conditions cramped and packed with up to 36 soldiers in a trailer at a time, living on top of each other. And right now there's a huge COVID outbreak amongst the camps along the border. Colonel West also alluded to soldiers relieving themselves on the side of the road or on private property because porta-johns have not been provided. This is a failure in planning. Right now there are some female soldiers that have to ask to go to the restroom and have someone take them to a local convenience store. Or females, there are males, it has been reported that males are relieving themselves in eye distance of females, and that's not right. This is not how we treat soldiers, guardsmen, or Texas citizens. That should never happen. I had better conditions than that in Iraq than some soldiers have it on the Texas border. I alluded to in the very beginning that Guardsmen support the local community. Well, I tell you right now, morale is very low with soldiers on the border. And when morale is low, soldiers do not extend and stay in the Army National Guard or the Air National Guard or the State Guard. And so what the long-term effect here with retention is going to be very difficult for the Guard. And if you can't fill Guard ranks, then who are you going to call on when there's an emergency and you need someone to help you as Texas citizens? There are other issues that are plaguing soldiers on the border, such as soldiers not having cold weather gear. I know everyone in Texas has felt the winter weather the last few days. Now, they don't have this gear because not every Guardsman that went to the border was issued cold weather gear. Not every Guardsman was issued body armor. And we all know that violence along the border is very dangerous with the cartels in Mexico. There's not enough body armor to swap out with other soldiers. Individual first aid kits are very important. They have tourniquets in case a soldier does get shot. They have life-saving supplies inside of them, and if they don't have it, when something bad happens, they're not going to be able to save each other. I will tell you that all of this is failed leadership at the Texas Military Department, and the commander of the Texas Military Department is Major General Tracy Norris, that has been appointed by Governor Abbott. I appreciate your time today. Stay safe, keep soldiers and your fellow Texans in prayer because they definitely need it. Colonel West.
Thanks, Sergeant Major. One of the things that we get taught about leadership is that leadership is supposed to inspire people. But when you have soldiers that are contacting the Sergeant Major or myself, and they're saying, please don't say anything about my name, or please make sure that nothing comes back toward me because there will be punitive measures, acts of retribution taken against me, that's not leadership. Leadership should not be about coercion or intimidation or threats. There's even a rumor out there that there are potential arrest warrants for Texans that don't show up because they know that it will put a hardship on their families. See, those 24 to 26,000 members of the Texas Military Department, they have wives, they have husbands, they have mothers, they have fathers, they have children. And we should be taking those things into consideration instead of political optics. We should not be rushing into a failure. and see some of the things that we need to look at is first and foremost, who is going to be held responsible? In the last 2 months, 4 suicides, 1 attempted suicide, 1 suicide under investigation. Sergeant Major now can tell you that any unit that had a problem with like that, a command climate as such, there would be an investigation. And so there should be an investigation. I think that the National Guard Bureau should conduct an investigation. I think that this falls squarely on the shoulders of the person that ordered the commencement of Operation Lone Star, and that's you, Governor Abbott. There are families that are going to be missing their loved ones because they took their lives in the state of Texas, not in Iraq, not in Korea, not anywhere else. They took their lives in the state of Texas because they felt that they had no other recourse, that they were in such a situation of despair and despondency. Major General Tracy Norris, if you have any honor, integrity, or character whatsoever, you should immediately submit your resignation. If not, Governor Abbott, you should relieve Major General Tracy Norris of command. And Brigadier General Moni R. Eulis, who right now is the Deputy Adjutant General, should be promoted to be the Adjutant General of the state of Texas. We need to take those type of actions. There needs to be an audit done of the Texas Military Department, because from what I understand, we have been spending money on Airbnbs to the rate of about $1,950 a night back last year between September, October, and November. These are serious issues. Because why are we going out and renting Airbnbs when our troops don't have their individual first aid kits, they don't have enough body armor, they don't have enough ammunition? Governor Abbott, this is about leadership or the failure thereof. But I can guarantee every single person in the state of Texas, having been someone that has worn a uniform, having a dad that wore the uniform, an older brother that wore a uniform, a nephew that's wearing a uniform, a father-in-law that wore the uniform, standing next to a man that wore the uniform, we will protect our young men and young women here in the state of Texas. God bless you all. God bless Texas.